al-Assad issues a decree granting an additional session of exams to the students of the first university phase. Al-Jaafari says Israel's occupation of Arab lands has reached dangerous phases in light of international failure to compel Israel to end its occupation. Our army units continue chasing terrorists and attacking their hideouts. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. President Bashar al-Assad has issued Decree 271 of 2013, granting an additional session of exams for the students of the first university phase who failed in any subject based on the results of the exams of academic year 2012-2013. The decree also stipulates granting an additional session of exams in the first or second semester of academic year 2013-2014 for the students of the first university phase who had exhausted the chances of application to exams during academic years 2010, 2011, and 2011 and 2012, whether those who benefited or did not benefit from a previous additional session, as well as those who have exhausted the chances of application to exams during academic year 2012-2013. Syria's permanent representative to the UN, Dr. Bashar al-Jaafari, has affirmed that the Israeli occupation of Arab territories and its repercussions on the stability and security of the region has reached a dangerous phase in light of international failure to compel Israel to end its occupation of the Arab lands in implementation of relevant international legitimacy resolutions. Addressing the open session of the UN Security Council to discuss the situation in the Middle East, Jaafari said Syria's delegation rejects the insistence of some delegations to drive the Security Council's debates concerning the situation in the Middle East away from the main objective for which this article has been introduced, through placing other subjects among the priorities of the UN agenda in order to marginalize the question of Israeli occupation of Arab lands. Al-Jaafari expressed astonishment that the UN Secretary-General's representative had kept referring to the occupied Syrian Golan as the Golan instead of the occupied Syrian Golan, which is the legal name adopted by the UN. Dr. Jaafari said the UN Secretary-General's representative also made no mention of the need to end Israeli occupation of the Golan and has shed no light on Israel's cooperation with the armed terrorist groups that are active in the disengagement area. Dr. Jaafari added that the UN Secretary-General's representative did not refute the allegations of the same states that support, arm and give harbor to the terrorists, spread extremism and sabotage in Syria, and work to foil any peaceful solution to the crisis. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Washington's decision to arm the Syrian opposition contravenes the principles of the Russian-American initiative to hold an international conference on Syria. In a conference he held with his Maldivian counterpart Natalia Guerman in Moscow, Lavrov said the Syrian government, contrary to the opposition, has agreed to this initiative, adding that the opposition national coalition has refused to take part in the conference. The radio of the Israeli occupation entity has said Saudi Arabia has agreed with the Israeli government to buy weapons from the Israeli army in the amount of $50 million to be sent to the terrorist gangs in Syria. The weapons include anti-armor shells, machine guns, vehicles, ammunition, spare parts, communication equipment, and binoculars. The radio added that Turkey and Jordan notified the occupation authorities of their approval to pass such weapons via the territories of both countries. Chairman of the American House of Representatives, John Boehner, has said that the efforts exerted by Washington to arm the Syrian opposition serve Washington's interests, thus confirming the motive behind his country's policy towards Syria. Former head of the Intelligence Committee at the American House of Representatives, Mike Rogers, had affirmed that President Obama would probably go ahead implementing a plan to arm the Syrian opposition in a new step that asserts the American administration's involvement in supporting the armed terrorist groups and exposes once more the reality of the American administration that seeks to serve its own interests through supporting the terrorists and build its policy on double standards. Welcome back. The former player of the Syrian volleyball team, Firas al-Eid, died of his wounds after an armed terrorist group opened fire on him in Deir Atiyah city, Damascus countryside province. Member of the Executive Office of the General Sports Federation, Tariq Hatem, said in a statement to Sana that an armed terrorist group shot Al-Eid, who worked as a coach of a national junior women's team in As-Suwayda, while he was on his way to Damascus coming from the central city of Homs, injuring him critically. Martyred Al-Eid was born in Salkhat city in As-Suwayda in 1978. He played for Al-Arabi, Al-Jaish, Al-Shurta and Tishrin clubs as he represented Syria's junior and youth teams. He was married and had 2 children. In Homs, 1 citizen was killed and several others were wounded following the explosion of an explosive device planted along the road between Homs and Al-Mukharram. The terrorists detonated the device as a passenger bus was passing by, killing the driver and injuring a number of passengers near Ain village, east of Homs. In Daraa countryside, a booby-trapped car driven by terrorist Malik al-Isa exploded in the western quarter of Busra al-Sham. The car was prepared to target citizens, but competent authorities in cooperation with local residents were able to avoid any potential damage or casualties. In Al-Hasaka countryside, army units foiled an attempt by terrorists to infiltrate into Al-Maqbara village along the road leading to Tal Abyad, eliminating large numbers of them. The operation was planned in cooperation with the National Defense Forces in Al-Hasaka as clashes lasted for 4 hours, during which 27 terrorists were killed. The army destroyed 3 vehicles and confiscated weapons, including an anti-aircraft cannon, an anti-armored machine gun, 6 missiles, wireless equipment, false passports, stolen car plates and night binoculars. Another terrorist group tried to infiltrate into Al-Atala village in Al-Hasaka countryside, but local residents confronted the group and forced it to flee. The army confiscated different types of weapons inside a den in the village of Al-Mughira, which included 6 missiles, RPGs, explosive belts and huge quantities of ammunition. The army killed dozens of terrorists and destroyed a number of hideouts southeast of Al-Hasaka in Al-Arisha district south of the city. And finally, Egyptian Minister of Defense General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi asserted that the Egyptian army is well united and it is commanded by the people. Addressing the Egyptian people in Alexandria, al-Sisi emphasized that the Egyptian armed forces will confront anyone who threatens the security and sovereignty of Egypt, which will always defend itself against the aggressors. Al-Sisi called on all Egyptians to hold a huge demonstration against terrorism next Friday. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Vani Gunjan, but after a short break.